and welcome to another episode of Weekly Dialogue from Vietnam Investment Review. Our discussion today is going to be on ecological industrial park, which over the past decade have become a fresh approach for industrial zones in Vietnam to attract secondary investors, and transitioning industrial parks towards an eco-friendly model with modern infrastructure and synchronized planning is really setting the benchmark and becoming the preferred option for FDI investors, as it appears to be the combination of both sustainable development and economic gains. And among the numerous domestic and international enterprises that have taken the lead in investing in eco-industrial park in Hai Phong City, one standout example is the deep sea industrial zones. And today we have the honor of having here with us in our studio Mr. Bruno Jaspard, CEO of Deep Sea Industrial Zones.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jaspard. Mr. Jaspard is going to share his insights on global and Vietnamese trends in eco-industrial parks and also his company's pioneering strategy in this domain. Thank you again, Mr. Jaspard, for taking the time to be here with us today. And before we dive into the main discussion, could you share with us a little bit about your journey in Vietnam so far? What brought you here specifically to Hai Phong, and how has the experience been for you?
There's a lot of questions,
yes,
but I can try to answer them one by one.
Right.
I arrived 5.5 years ago. It feels like 15 or 20 years for many reasons. I believe Vietnam develops very fast, so the speed is high. Our company is growing very fast, and Hai Phong is on the verge of explosion, I believe. So all that combined in one makes a year worth a few more years, I believe, than normal. But I also need to say that Vietnam, for me, has been treating myself very, very well. It feels really like a second home away from home. And it's a very nice place because I believe the true hidden value of Vietnam are the people. I've worked in many different countries, and I truly believe that the quality of people that we have managed to attract are really outstanding. And people are hardworking, they're loyal, and they're eager to improve themselves. And that is very, very rewarding if you start working somewhere else outside your own country. So for me, I can only advocate for more people to come to Vietnam, yes. And that makes me perhaps a good guy to be in charge of an industrial zone, I guess.
Right. And such an exciting journey. Thank you for sharing. And I think you shared earlier in an article with us that you moved from oil and gas to industrial zone, and also it's from your previous experience that compelled you to drive Deep Sea towards the more eco-friendly side, right? And while industrial parks may be familiar to many in our audience, I'm sure a lot of people are still not very well acquainted with the concept of eco-industrial zones. So could you share more about this and maybe provide some insights into the current global trends in eco-industrial park development?
So it's true, I used to work at the dark side, oil and gas, is one of my industries that I worked before, and I made it for myself very clear that if I would accept a new job, I want to be able to give something back. I do not only want to take, but should give something back. And then I managed to somehow accept this job in Hai Phong, of all places. And I said that we should rewrite our story. And 5 years ago, no one was asking us about sustainability. 5 years ago, we had to fight to actually to get investors to come to Vietnam. Vietnam as a country. Today, if investors would come, they will ask us, what is your long-term strategy in terms of sustainability? So clearly something has changed. Many things have changed over the past 5 years, but in terms of FDI, I believe that is a big change. Now, why would you do that 5 years ago? Probably because I was seeing what was happening in other adjacent sectors. Today, it is a crucial part of any business, especially stock-listed companies, to report on their efforts. And I believe that will not easily change anymore. It's like adapting a new accounting standard, or a new quality standard, and now you have also sustainability standards. To come back to your question, what does an eco-industrial park do? It actually enables investor to use part of the efforts that the industrial park is making to overcome some of the hurdles for them to report on sustainability. That means if we put in an ISO certified wastewater treatment plant, then that wastewater treatment plant will have an output, but that output can be re-injected inside the industrial cycle of a customer. That customer can say, look, I am actually recycling the wastewater. And that can go into his reporting, and that can earn him some credits. If we install on the roofs of our customers solar panels, then we will give them the eco carbon zero credits for it, and we will also give them clear and clean and green energy. So we try step by step to develop projects or take initiatives that make a difference for them, not only for us. So we are repackaging sustainability in a number of services, basically, which is quite novel, I guess. And it means also that we need to invest a lot. We do it. We don't wait for our customers to see the light and do something green or something for the environment. We do it ourselves. And we afterwards will offer it as a service to our customers. And it seems that a lot of customers are actually really happy to do so.
It's actually my follow-up question right up to that. It sounds like a win-win situation, right? So over the past 5 years, from your observation, how have businesses been responding to that idea, this new option, including both FDI enterprises and domestic ones?
I believe domestic ones struggle a bit more with the necessity to be sustainable. Foreign listed companies by default now in the States or in Europe have to look into it. And some newer startup companies are very eager to be sustainable or have sustainability ingrained in their setup. How do they react? I need to tell you the truth. There are still a lot of companies that don't care. They simply do not care whether we would be a green park or not. But we also believe that it's fine. If they still come to us, then at least they're in a industrial zone that has for the environment, for the people around our zone, at least they make a difference by coming to us, even if they don't care. And there are a type of investor that basically are driven by only one thing, price. Make it as cheap as possible.
Right.
My own personal opinion is for the future of Vietnam, those investors one day will again find a cheaper country with people with lower cost labor and lower cost utilities. So you can't bank the future of your land on an investor that would only come in for the short term.
Right. Now let's talk about a specific project organized by the Ministry of Planning and Investment, SECO and UNIDO to implement more eco-industrial parks in Vietnam, which I know Dixie was chosen for, right? So could you elaborate a little bit on the progress and specific of this initiative and how has it been benefiting you as a participating company?
The benefits are multiple, but the efforts have been also multiple.
Right.
So we've been a pioneer already for the first phase. There are only 5 economic zones, industrial parks selected across the whole of Vietnam. We're the only one in the north, and actually of the 5, we're the only one with a heavy industrial setup. To give an idea, if you are an SME industrial zone, it's very different. Or if you're an IT oriented industrial zone, if you have an industrial park full of IT workers, it's obviously very different than if you have somebody making steel and another one subsea cables and the third one solar panels. So we are quite unique in that regard. And we've been very honored, I believe, to work side by side with UNIDO and MPI. And I believe inside Vietnam, it's not known enough how well advanced Vietnam in the end managed to get. So there are a number of countries where this has been rolled out by the United Nations. Peru, Colombia, Egypt and Vietnam are spearheading these efforts, meaning they have already the best result out of this program. But I believe Vietnam is the only one where the recommendations of the United Nations have already led to a new law. The new law on industrial parks ingrains the standard of an eco-industrial park. And the whole basis of an industrial park is that you have a holistic view, that you look at everything that comes in and out of an industrial zone. All the companies produce waste, all the companies have incoming materials to produce something. There are people around the industrial zone that need to come there to work. There are authorities, and you look at all those different people, all those different instances, and you try to make as many recurring loops as possible. and that would lead in the end to the holy grail, which is circular economy. I believe that requires a lot of insight from the industrial zone developer, because you need to understand what your customer makes. And that is one of the big shortfalls today in Vietnam. Most industrial zone developers are actually interested in how many land can they sell. Whereas we are looking at the land we sell, we will sell it today at a price, but we will create so many services and possible other side projects to those people that selling the land is one thing, but we are actually trying, as I said, repackage sustainable efforts and services and actually invoice our customers for that. And because they accept that, that means also they can report it in their own new sustainability standards. And that is how we try to close the circle.
Could you give a specific example of, such a collaboration of you and a customer in order to try to create a circular economy?
Sure. So we have two customers, a Korean one and a Taiwanese one, that both need a lot of steam for their production process. They both file a feasibility study with a steam plant inside, and they both more or less come on stream at the same time. So we take the initiative, we talk to both of them and said, actually, why don't we build a steam plant? And on top of that, that steam plant will use actually the water coming out of our wastewater treatment plant. And we will make sure that the steam plant will not be run by a standard fuel, but we will make it a biomass steam plant. As a byproduct, we will be able to recycle some of the heat into electricity, and we will put that back as green energy into our electricity grid, because we have our own electricity grid at Deepsea. Both customers don't need to invest, they just pay a fixed fee per cubic meter of steam. And we can insert extra green energy into our grid. We can make deals with the local communities for all their biomass material to be burned off in our steam plant, and we recycle the output of the wastewater treatment plant.
Well, that sounds really exciting. And I'm pretty sure it takes a lot of collaboration and effort as well, right?
Yes.
Right. And I think that Vietnam over the past few years have made really significant progress in terms of pushing for, sustainability standards. But also, and this initiative and this collaboration is an example of that, right? But still, you mentioned earlier in your response also that there are a lot of companies in the business community that still think of following the sustainability standard as something that is costly and maybe something just a nice to have, right? So what is your take on this? And given Deepsea prominence as a major industry player, then could you discuss the competitive advantage of, being placed in an eco-industrial park to maybe attracting foreign businesses and forming new partnerships? You touched upon that a little bit in your response earlier, but I want you to go deeper, into the benefits that it may bring.
Today, if you run an international company, there are many bottlenecks placed upon any of them.
Right.
And even if you're producing in Vietnam, under the new regulations, it's no longer possible for them to treat their people badly or to source materials from non-sustainable sources. That is not yet really clear on the radar for many people in Vietnam. But the fact that we have made efforts to ensure that we can have local sourcing, that we set up vocational schools where investors can come and say, I need 40, within 2 years, I need 40 people that have electronics inside knowledge. So we can make a deal with the vocational school, set up a program, and ensure that these people can, by the time they start up their factory, have the first batch of 20 or 40 people going into their factory. So we can work together, side by side. And that is, I think, the real problem that we face. An eco-industrial park is based on symbiosis. Symbiosis is a difficult word, but it means actually that you strive for harmony. You try to align interests, both from the developer and the investor, from the people in and outside the zone, and the authorities. And we all can find some alignment. It just takes a lot of work to make sure that all those interests are balanced out. Now, an eco-industrial park standard, I need to break you the news, it costs money. It's more expensive than just developing an industrial zone, which is one of the reasons why today not so many people are willing to become an eco-industrial park, but a lot of people are willing to talk about sustainability and how green they are. But you can talk as much as you want. If you don't adhere to a standard, if you don't measure and then report on what you measure, then it doesn't mean anything. So that's the reason why last year we issued, as the very first industrial zone in Vietnam, an ESG report, which covers both environmental actions, social actions, and governance actions. And we write down what we've done last year and what we plan to do this year. And we can fail. Obviously, that is also the big change. If you write it down and then you don't you commit, but you don't execute, then year after, you look quite bad. Where does Deep Sea use this to its benefit? By simply doing this, we have access to such a pipeline of customers for whom it is crucial that when they have a new factory, whatever the amount of millions to be invested, that it's done in a sustainable way. And then if there's a due diligence on multiple investment locations, obviously on sustainability, we will score very high. We might not score as good on other, for example, locations. Not everybody wants to be in Quan Ninh or Haiphong, or not everybody needs to be close to a port, or not everybody is willing to pay a premium for a sustainable location. But then again, that's offset by some other things where we score very high. Yes.
I'm just a little bit curious, based on your assessment, of all of the companies, how do you assess the level of awareness and acceptance of Vietnamese businesses in terms of, maybe like in terms of a percentage, how many of, companies in the manufacturing sectors would be willing to follow these sustainability standards and maybe choose an eco-friendly...
Vietnamese companies, correct. Right. I think perhaps 25%.
25? Right. So it still takes a lot of more awareness raising for the whole market.
But those that will export a lot to the States or Europe, there's a GRI standard to comply with. There's the new European standard on sustainability reporting. They will feel the brunt of those measures as of this year.
True.
So every company that exceeds 750 million euro turnover in Europe now has to comply with this. In the States, it depends a little bit more on the activities, but an increasing amount of companies out of voluntary will or by law are actually imposing this. But of course, it's always the supplier that pays the price. It's easy for a big company to say, we will do this in a more sustainable way, but they only receive the goods. Somebody else makes them for them. So that means that those suppliers, the Vietnamese companies here in Vietnam, will have to adjust.
Right. Now let's focus more about Deep Sea and what we can do for, these factories that are gearing towards the more eco-friendly side, right? So could you share more about the processes that you're providing, other than what you already shared? And what is your overall vision for delivering dependable and sustainable services to businesses operating here in Vietnam and also seeking expansion to other countries, like you mentioned?
So first of all, we need to make it very clear. In Deep Sea, we do everything ourselves. So the electricity, we deliver ourselves. The water, we deliver ourselves. The wastewater treatment, we do it ourselves. Anything that happens in Deep Sea, it's our own team. If you need temporary lodging to start up your factory before you build it, we have LEED certified warehouses that will enable you to put yourself in. Now, for Deep Sea, to look after a sustainable standard, it took also for us quite a few years. It didn't happen overnight.
Right.
Now, if you are my customer and you say, Bruno, I would really like to come to Deep Sea, of course I would be happy to have you. But you would also say, Bruno, you're too expensive. And then I would say, no, we're not expensive. And then it'll say, I'll even give you a lower price. But we should be partners. So if I give you a lower price, are you agreeing to give your roof to Deep Sea? You say, actually, I don't need my roof. So we will take your roof and we will put solar panels on it. And then if you want to, you can buy that electricity back at a discount, and we will give you renewable energy credits for it.
Right.
So part of the price equation is out of the window. So that sounds quite good, and it's a win-win. So now the question is, why are not more people doing this? Why I'm in front of all of you saying this? because I know how hard it is. I know that it requires a lot of effort, a lot of paperwork, because for a lot of these sustainable initiatives, the law is not ready. So it takes perseverance and cooperation with the local authorities. For quite a few of our projects, we have actually been lucky that the local authority gave us a trial status. For example, there is no building code to build a road based on waste. So, however, we've done a first trial. We'll do now a next trial this year with recycled plastic. We will collect plastic from our customers and we will regrind it and we will replace part of the bitumen by plastic. So the plastic goes into the road. We will then monitor for the next 5 years if there's any plastic pollution derived from the fact that we use waste, and only then it can go into the, hopefully, national law framework. So we need to be a pioneer by actually being allowed, by getting exemptions on existing setups, because it's simply not foreseen. We have a windmill in our industrial park. Till we had a windmill built inside an industrial zone, there was no basis, because there is no one that ever applied for a construction permit for a windmill inside an industrial zone. So by default, it was not possible. So again, it takes a lot of doing to get there, and to work closely with actually the authorities that need to decide whether or not it's a viable project. Yeah.
That actually leads right into my next question, and the idea of symbiosis that you mentioned earlier, right? I feel like is really the symbiosis between you and your company and also the authorities to make all of this happen. So how do you perceive the current investment environment in the northern region of the country, particularly, Haiphong and Quang where Deep Sea is operating, in terms of their willingness to be adaptive to all of the sustainable development policies? And yes, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of rooms to improve. So maybe some recommendations that you can give to further enhance the country's sustainable development policies?
Well, first of all, the North is developing today much faster than the South. The investment climate for the North, I think, is today more positive than the South. The North has actually a very big advantage, which used to be their disadvantage. They have been less developed. That means if you start something new, you can start from scratch.
Right.
You can still do it in the right way. If you go to Ho Chi Minh today and you say to an existing industrial zone, please become sustainable, it's really, really hard. They can make marginal efforts, but everything is done.
Right.
It's too late. So we have actually been lucky to develop much more slowly, so that we could rewrite our story based on much higher sustainable standards. Now, having said that, it still takes time and effort to do so. The North today is in the right place at the right time. I believe since Mr. Trump started the trade war with China, it had quite substantial effect on investments across the world, and the north of Vietnam is definitely one of the big winners, there's no doubt. And as it happens, we were at the forefront of that same development. So yes, Deep Sea has, I think in 5 years, quintupled itself, which is quite...
That's really impressive.
Yeah,
and considering COVID.
I can barely believe it myself, but it did happen.
Right.
And actually at the same time, you still see that actually there's room for more. Today, I think we're a bit more limited by how fast can you sustainably grow. Because sustainability means also that you need to do it in the right way. If you go too fast, then you have to cut corners. I believe that today the North is in an ideal place to make a statement. For example, Haiphong is looking at the new economic zone, the second economic zone after Cat Hai Dinh Vu zone. The new design for that is out of this world. We helped to advise on it. If they're gonna pull it off, it will look like something that is no longer typical Vietnamese. It will look like a real green area with very, very nice looking features, where it would be a nice place not only to work but also to live, actually. And I believe that is what we should strive for. We should learn from the mistakes that happen in other places and make sure that here in the North, because it's happening now, that we don't make the same mistakes.
if you have to look back over the past 5 years, for you personally, what would you consider your biggest achievement? Is it quintuple the revenue, or is it something else, or a challenge that you've overcome?
I believe if you ask that question to the people at Deep Sea, I believe they all know there's one project that I'm most proud of, is that we set up a farm. We set up an organic farm outside our industrial zone, 100% certified organic food, fish, chicken, shrimps, vegetables, fruit. And everybody in our company that earns 15 million dong or less gets twice a month a whole basket full of fruit, and we harvest in the morning and we deliver in the evening when they go home. We've done that now for 2 years. We're planning to expand it, and we will offer food baskets as a service to all our investors, so they can add that into the salary package they offer their people. Vietnamese people like food, especially fresh, high quality food.
Yeah.
Organic food is very, very expensive in Vietnam because it's so difficult to get to. So we decided to do it ourselves. And it works really, really well. We manage to actually give also some extra jobs for older farmers that don't make a living off their own land anymore. We also manage that way to teach some younger people new organic agriculture way of farming. And we actually have managed to prove that you can make a much more expensive way of farming reachable for even very low salaried people. And it works. So I'm very, very proud of it. And it's a project that proves that if you're smart in how you look at what is needed, and if you're a bit creative, we've reached now actually the scale where we can make really impactful changes. And I hope that in the near future our farm might be 5 times bigger, just like our zones.
Yes. Right, yes. That sounds really lovely, and it sounds like what's happening at Deep Sea right now. It's like you have this little utopia, in Haiphong that we here in Hanoi, just cannot imagine.
Yes, so you should come more often to Haiphong.
Right, definitely, yes.
Utopia is around the corner. Right. But I need to tell you, utopia is built on a lot of sweat and hard work.
I believe so too.
And there have been days, I must tell you, that I said, what on earth are we doing? But it pays off. Our pipeline has never been as full as today. Last year we reached all our records. This year I believe it will again be a record year for Deep Sea as a cluster. So it proves sustainability can pay off. All it takes is the decision, a decision to make a difference. And I believe we manage that thin line between making enough efforts and still remaining profitable quite successfely at this moment. Yes.
Right, that's good to know. And to wrap up our discussion today, could you share a little bit more about your upcoming plans and objectives for this year and beyond?
My upcoming plans are grand. I would like to double the land bank of Deep Sea within the next 5 years.
Right.
So we have now 3,400 hectares in the north. That makes us one of the biggest, if not the biggest player in the north of Vietnam. But Vietnam is much bigger than the north. So perhaps we should expand in some unknown territory and make a difference out there. I hope in the upcoming months to come with a announcement on that matter. Separately, we believe that we will announce also very soon a drastic model shift, I believe, in terms of electricity. Already we have our own electricity grid, we have renewable energy, but I believe we will try to take it one step further. Thirdly is my farm, the farm that I really want to expand and put in the market as a system. And last, but definitely not least, is education. I think as a company we're reaching the scale where we can attract probably enough universities or colleges to link up with what we do. And that's also one way for us to give back, because I believe as a foreign investor this is a lovely country that you have, but we should not only take, we should give something back.
Thank you so much. That's really lovely. And with that insightful response, we've come to the conclusion of our discussion today. Our short conversation has given me a lot of insights into the realm of, eco-industrial park, a topic maybe less familiar to those that are not in the manufacturing sectors. And I trust that our audience has also benefited from our discussion. It's evident that sustainable development is becoming increasingly important across all industries, and pioneering companies like DeepSea, are really leaving their mark in raising industry standards. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Jasper, for coming onto our show and for the meaningful discussion today.
Thank you for having us, and for all of you out there, if you don't know Haiphong, by all means, come and have a look. Utopia is just around the corner. Thank you.
That's really great to know. We would like to extend our best wishes to you and your continued effort in leading DeepSea to success.
And as you know, Utopia is around the corner. You're always welcome to come and visit.
And to our audience, thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you and goodbye.